generic cold emails are now falling below 0.001%. That means that for every 10,000 messages you send, you get one meeting booked. Agency owners or marketers are still telling you that more volume in the channel is the answer. You're just burning your domain reputation as well as your leads in the process. But there's one mechanism that we use that have produced $20 million in client revenue for us over the last 18 months. We've produced it across 1,041 webinars. Most marketers dismiss it before even trying it. So by the end of this video, you're going to have a complete end-to-end system, a working webinar conversion framework that gives you a sales system with the specific mechanics behind each component, the exact 4-law sequence, putting them together. Now, if you've watched my other videos on this channel, this is how it is that you put the conversion mechanism in place, of how it is that you can take a cold stranger into somebody that already knows, trusts, and respects your expertise without you ever actually having to get on a sales call. You're going to see in this video the replacement from grinding through thousands of outreaches as well as thousands of calls in order for you to build trust in a way that scales. So here's the sequence that every high converting webinar needs. It's guided by 4 laws in this order. And the order matters because each law sets up the next one and transitions into the next one, so that you can take somebody from total stranger into somebody who's ready to buy your product or service. And if you try to skip ahead or do this in the wrong order, the whole thing breaks. So number 1 is you never want to open a webinar with, "Thank you so much for being here today, and we welcome you to our webinar." You've already lost momentum. In fact, most clients that I see, their first webinar, they always do this. They always open up like this Gardner, McKinsey, management consulting research paper that feels very corporate. It's because when the camera goes on, they suddenly become a different person. And that opening signals you need them to show up. And it puts you in the wrong position that everything follows. The hook is not pleasantry, right? You're not there to thank them. You're not there to sound like John from the water cooler. You are there. They are there for a specific reason. Your promotional copy attracted them to the webinar. They are there to learn something from you. They are there to get something. And it's up for you to set up the terms of the engagement. It's like a contract. You're telling the attendees exactly what they are going to walk away from by attending this webinar. A specific named result, a number or metric that they really care about, like revenue, profit, whatever KPI is important to them, key performance indicator. Hopefully you know that. But before you said anything else, something that they can hold on to, something concrete. It's like, for example, by the time we finish today, you will know the exact structure behind a webinar that's generated $20 million in client revenue over the last 18 months. And by the way, I'm going to show you the exact sequence of how it is that you can run that and deploy that yourself into your business. That is a hook. It names the outcome, and better yet, it's time-bound. It creates a reason for them to stay. So the operators or B2B founders who open up with gratitude and blah, 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 you sound needy. You have to open from a position of value, and the entire energy of the session will run differently. It's like Zig Ziglar says, 80s sales training guy, timid salespeople have skinny kids. And then once you've set that up, then you transition into law 2, which is name standard practice before you name the consequence of it. A lot of presenters jump straight into the solution. They say, talk about the hook, and then they immediately start giving the medicine. This is the wrong order. You haven't quantified the cost for them. You haven't quantified how much staying on this track will cost them and their families. And so they go into, but Scott, I want to get to the point. I want to educate. I want to give value. I want to blah, 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 blah. The problem is that doesn't sell. And then you wonder why your webinars are not converting anybody. Or worse, you lead with some statistic or stats or a research paper because, back in my days at McKinsey, this is how you presented a PowerPoint. But you're not at McKinsey anymore. You're here to grow your business. And people don't care about the stats. They care about their problems and how you can help them. And so you have to establish what standard practice is so that you can create credibility. And then once you name the consequence and you've made it real for them, that's how you establish that wow. In the eyes of the audience, they go thinking, wow, They understand my problem better than I do. For those of you paying attention, I just did it. And so an example, most B2B service businesses are running on a mix of referrals or cold outreach. This is a standard model. And here's exactly what continuing on that is costing both your reputation and your top line revenue. In fact, it's actually costing you your dream business that you dreamed of when you started your business. And when you frame it that way, the attendee feels seen. And that's exactly how you establish that credibility, by providing them specific observable terms, not some abstract risk or some statistic that they can't relate to. And the best way to find this is to look at your sales calls, right? What situation were they in before they bought your service? In fact, if you get anything out of this video, let it be that. You want to pull the exact language that a prospect used to describe their problem on a call. Not your words, not your language, but their words. How do they think about it? Because when the attendees of the webinar hear their own words coming back at them, you establish so much credibility and trust that when they get on the sales call, they are ready to buy, right? In fact, I've seen people do this section and bomb everything else. Hook was terrible, and the other two laws I'm going to talk about, they did not execute well, but because they nailed this one section, they closed a deal. They've closed deals from webinars, right? 5-figure, 6-figure deals just from nailing this section. Now, that brings me to the third law, which is that oftentimes people talk in, especially consultants or B2B service-based businesses or SaaS founders, you guys are super smart, but that can actually cost you. Here's what I mean by that, is that if you're talking in some abstract terminology, you're using like 12-letter words to describe a specific problem or a solution, in this case, you're talking about, here are the 3 bullets you need to succeed for your pharmaceutical company to succeed, or here's the 3 bullets for you to improve employee engagement in HR. Here are the 3 bullets of how you can close more deals. But then you don't actually talk about that through a story, right? For example, one way not to do this is like, say, for example, looking at your political system. Looking at the political system. It's like, oh yeah, our political system is fucked. That's an example of it being abstract, versus seeing how, oh yeah, how everybody is arguing over really small things, and it's hurting family, maybe it's hurting your family dynamic, where you see every Thanksgiving, your uncle's arguing with your cousin, and it creates all of this tension. Who here can relate to that, right? That's the difference between your political system is fucked versus documenting about how it's affecting them and their families personally. So you have to show the before and after slide by slide, right? You never want to talk about it in the abstract. You have to show, don't tell. Talk about the exact standard practice that customer XYZ was using. And then how did you solve that step by step? And then step 1, you always want to walk through what the customer did. It's not about how you help the customer. It's about what the customer did. The customer is the hero in the story. Why? Because that's what your audience is going to relate to. And at the same time, that's going to give the audience the way for them to measure themselves against your customer. And they're going to be able to see the customer through their own eyes. Think about how you've ever watched a story like Star Wars, for example, right? That's a classic example of the hero's journey, where you can see, going from farmer to person who saves the galaxy, step by step. And we all relate to the call to adventure, or when Obi-Wan tells Luke, like, hey, come with me, like, I need your help. And then Luke says, no, I need to help out my aunt and uncle. Like, what are you talking about? He resists the call, right? It's the same process. It's the same story. But instead of that, you're giving your clients the opportunity to become the hero in their own story by telling the story of somebody exactly like them and how they went through your specific process. So here's an example. Before, cold outreach below 1% reply rate. Pipeline was the client XYZ had cold outreach with less than 0.001% meeting booked rate. Pipeline was dependent on referrals. So they had this up and down cycle where some months were great, but then they would go 3, 4, 5 months without a referral. And so they were on this feast or famine roller coaster where they didn't know where the next deal was coming from, versus they installed a cold calendar outreach system that for every 1,000 messages that they sent out, they had 10 people show up on a webinar, and then one of them booked calls. And then here's the exact framework that they used on the webinar. They said this at this point, they said that at that point, right? And then you have to put those two states next to each other. And the more that you can pause as you're telling that story, the more that is going to register. Now, they understand the process, but they don't feel sold to. It's the difference between chasing somebody and like trying to forcibly sell them and being pitchy on the webinar versus letting them come to you. It's the difference between trying to force and then versus just being magnetic and letting them make their own decision. Now, law 4, even in having a great call to action, this has 4 parts. Now, a lot of founders will say, if you found this interesting, then book a discovery call. And they just rush through it. And then they wonder why nobody books a call. And that close fails because it skips all the most important parts of the process. And first, every great call to action will restate the problem and the consequence. What is it costing them personally and financially right now? This serves as a reminder for the pain that came up. So for example, like we talked about how Bob and Jim were on a feast and famine roller coaster for referrals, and it was costing them their dream business and time away from their families because they were grinding in manual outreach every single day. And then we summarize the result. It's the demonstrated. So not like the abstract bullets, it's the outcome. So Bob and Jim, they then built and installed a cold calendar outreach system that used webinars to drive conversions and drive sales calls. And now you saw how they were booking dozen sales calls now every single month, where they had a consistent pipeline that they could lean on, and their business was growing month over month. And by the way, they made $400,000 last year using the system. If you want to see that case study, it's actually not Bob and Jim, Rory and Ken. Subscribe to the channel and we'll put it in the description. And then the third law is making the ask directly. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want a similar result in Bob and Jim, then go ahead, schedule a call, click the link, scan the QR code, find a time, select a time, and we'll see you on the other side. A great call to action is specific, tells the audience exactly what to do, how to book a call. You don't want to make them think about it. You want to reduce the friction, and you do that by making it step by step. Now, the fourth piece is giving bonuses. And this is what separates a good call to action to a great call to action. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video or joining our webinar. And by the way, for those of you who book a call today, we are going to receive a copy of our $20 million webinar playbook. This is everything that we've learned from running 1,041 webinars over the last 18 months. For those of you that book, we'll receive a copy today. The more bonuses that you can receive for people booking, the higher conversion rate you are going to receive for meetings and book calls. This makes a massive difference, and don't underestimate the power of good lead magnets. And then you always want to dollarize the value. So for example, for those of you who book a call, we're going to walk you through a $10,000 custom consulting framework that you'll gain access to just for booking a call, where this is a personalized roadmap that's bespoke to you and your business that consultants used to charge $10,000 for, that with the advent of AI, we can now give this to you for free. And we'll walk you through the strategy playbook step by step and how you can apply it to your business for those of you that. So go ahead, scan the QR code, find a time, blah, 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 step by step. Now, if you want to see Hormozi apply the same 4-step framework that I'm talking about, then go ahead, watch that video up here. And for those of you who haven't downloaded and reviewed our $20 million webinar playbook, and you want to see me apply this framework step by step, and you want me to see going in even greater detail into it, then go ahead, click the link in the description, download your copy today, and you'll receive an email as well as a direct download that details everything that we've learned running webinars over the last 18 months, 1,041 of them, that have produced over $20 million in client revenue. Go ahead, download that. We'll see you on the next one.